Well, my name is Jonathan Mark. I live here and I get inspired by nature all the time. So when I found out that the Tennessee Gas Pipeline was proposing to put a pipeline not just through my land but through the state forest and the surrounding wetlands and the conservation lands, at first I was shocked. And then I realized there's a community that's aware of the fraudulent nature of this project, and now I feel like comforted by joining with people and hopeful that we're starting to gather enough momentum early enough where we would be able to stop it. So I'm happy to be here right now and in the future.
So how were you approached by Kinder Morgan?
Well, they first called me and asked me if they wanted to do a survey, and I told them that I wasn't interested in surveys because I thought they were talking about the usual surveys for, shopping stores and stuff. And he explained that they're a Tennessee Gas Pipeline Company, and I told him I wasn't interested in infrastructure for fossil fuels, and that I'm much more into distributed energy and renewable energy that's clean. And then I thought I wasn't going to be bothered anymore. Then I discovered on the No Frack Gas and Mass website that they chose my land as part of their proposal for dissecting the prettiest part of Massachusetts all the way across the width, and I realized I had no choice but to fight it any way I can, and I'm hoping that with unity and people realizing that everyone's paying for it and very few are benefiting from it, we'll stop this pipeline.
Tell us about your beautiful brook and what they would do about your brook
Yeah,
here.
so here's Moss Brook, and it's geared to go right across it, but they don't really go across, they go under. And they're digging about 3 feet under, they're bulldozing it, they'll be diverting it, and then the brook will be going over the pipeline. And this is a pressurized pipeline. And wherever it does leak, and it's known to leak, it's going to infiltrate the water system. So not only do they, get polluted when they're fracking and extracting it from the earth, they're polluting in the transport, and then they'll be polluting when they're burning it. So it's another century ago that this technology could be proposed. It's not fitting for right now, except for the geopolitical purposes that seems to be in play, and that's what Massachusetts has to fight against.
And you actually go in this brook. Sometimes it's much higher than it is now.
Oh yeah,
and
well, I
you
go
can-
in now even
Even
just whenever it's you get the hots, and I live with very little need for a lot of electricity because I bathe in my brook as much as I can, especially I enjoy it, and it's soothing to me, and it's oxalic acid. It's really good for the bug bites. Sometimes I have to fight the bugs out here, but it's worth it because as soon as you get wet and coated, then they don't really bite you anymore. So you have to it makes you go in quicker.
And what are you doing over here with all these logs?
And these are oak logs that have been inoculated with shiitake spawn, and that's for growing shiitake mushrooms. And in this area is a perfect area because it's nicely shaded and there's water for soaking the logs. For the first incubation period they need to be soaked, and then every spring and fall they start fruiting shiitake mushrooms.
And so if the pipeline went through here, this would be gone, I guess.
Well,
it would be cut.
50 feet, 100 feet
Yeah.
of swath, and
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't remain here. I couldn't, after being here pre-pipeline times, I wouldn't move anywhere else where I would trust this area.
So, Margie, we met on one of the walks that was going through the state here to get rid of the pipeline, stop the pipeline, and we got talking about things and got the idea to make a video of people's plight facing the pipeline. So if you just want to give us your full name and where we are here in the
Sure.
state of Massachusetts.
Sure, my name's Margie Babbitt and I live in Northfield, Massachusetts. And I was contacted back in February when they wanted to survey I have another little piece of property in Irving that abuts the Northfield, and they wanted to go through there with the pipeline. So when they came, they wanted me to sign right there, and I didn't know anything about it. Wanted to do some research, and I asked them to please give me some time so that I can research and then I'll get back to them. And it's been, I don't know, it was a week, and they wanted an answer, called back, and then I said I really haven't looked up enough, and then he called back again, and by this time there were buzzwords going around of who was being contacted and what this was all about, and I was learning more and I wasn't liking it. So,
What did you learn that you didn't like, Margie?
oh my gosh, that the whole forest would be disrupted, and since this piece of land is surrounded by the state forest, just to even get to the piece, they'd have to disturb the state forest and my property, which is a forested property. So, and I heard about leaks in the pipe that could happen, and I read about the dangers to the water supply, and it just would be detrimental to the environment and to me, and I didn't really want it at all. And if it was a question of getting more electricity here, I wasn't opposed to spending some money to put solar in or anything that would help me, but not to have the pipeline come through.
Yeah. So
It's
how
hard.
many miles would it have been on your particular Irving?
That's a 5.5 acre piece. And when they're talking, which is very interesting, 50 feet
Yeah.
for the easement, but then that's another 50 to 100 feet outside that easement. So when you look at that on a 5.5 acre property, what's left?
And then what would they do to maintain it? After they dug it up, dynamited it, or whatever
That's
they have
it.
to do
They'd
to
have
put it
to.
in, then they have that easement that you cannot do anything with.
That's right. Can't do anything with it. So
You couldn't put trees on it. You couldn't even have a,
no.
you know.
No,
anything.
it was very disturbing, and all the animals. I do have endangered species here. I have had a forester come out, and I have the spotted salamanders and the spotted box turtles. So I know that it would disrupt nature. I have vernal pools on that property,
And what lives in the vernal pools?
the
The
salamanders.
salamanders.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then I found out when you're in a forested area and then you're clearing that, it brings in the light. Well, when you're bringing in the light, you're also bringing in the invasive species. So the bittersweet and the buckthorn can easily come through.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
So yeah, I found
yeah.
that out too. So
I hadn't
it's a
thought
no-
about the issue of bringing in the light. That's
Yeah.
very interesting.
so it was
Yeah,
really a no-win situation.
And then they'd have to maintain that, so they would do some aerial spraying of chemicals and things, and they wouldn't necessarily let you know what they were even spraying.
No, no.
So that property would be,
Yeah,
Trash.
yeah, and I would be still paying taxes on it. And this is, my property that, let's say I want to sell it or well, actually I want it to go to my daughter at some point, the value would go tremendously down. So,
that would be worthless,
It would be
actually.
worthless.
It would be worthless, yeah.
because
Yeah.
it would affect it.
So when you heard all of this, what was your
Mm.
response?
Oh, I was very upset about it. I just couldn't believe it. I was just shocked. I had no idea that they would want to go through such pristine property and just dissolve the whole environment
Yeah,
that we have
yeah.
here. So after learning about it and learning other people who they contacted, I said, okay, now what can I do? And I had some great ideas. Of course, I wrote all the representatives. That was number one. And somebody said, well, you could put a sign up. I said, right away I got a sign up. A homemade one, but I got one up. And then I thought, well, what else can I do? And they said, well, you could distribute signs. So that's when I actually had 2 suppliers for signs. And as soon as I distributed a batch, I would get another batch. And as of now, I've distributed in 10 towns. Which
How many signs do you think you've distributed?
Oh my gosh, I don't know for sure.
Maybe 100.
I think at least 100.
At least
At
100.
least 100.
Wow.
Because they're all over. They're all over, and I feel really proud of that. So
And then have you been to any meetings where they've made presentations?
I've been to meetings. Yes, I've been to the Kinder Morgan presentations. Yes, yes, I have. The best one I really liked was the one in Irving. Actually,
I was there, yeah.
Yes, you
Yeah,
were.
yeah, yeah,
You had a wonderful speech, and I
Yeah,
really liked
yeah.
what Denise Andrews had to say.
Right, that's right.
'Cause it was-
State Representative
Yes.
Sanders, that's right.
To have an opposition
That's right.
speaker to what they were presenting.
Right.
And so
So you heard Cole Morgan,
No, not Cole Morgan. Kinder Morgan.
you heard Kinder Morgan,
Yeah.
and then you heard Representative Denise Andrews and Hattie. And what did you take out of that? Those two sides.
Oh, I was so happy there were two sides. Because in the past, there haven't been. And I'm going to another one on August 19th in my town in Northfield.
That's right.
And there's only one side. It's one-sided presentation. And we can't stand up and speak our questions in Northfield. We send in our questions to the town clerk, and then we have a moderator,
That's
I
right.
guess, who will select the questions. So,
Mhm,
you know, it's a little different venue for each one.
mhm.
But I was very happy that Denise was there.
So what most struck you from the Kinder Morgan presentation?
Slick. Sorry. it just, I don't know. I didn't resonate with it. I didn't feel good about it. There were people in the audience that knew facts, and they were shouting out, "No, that's not true." Or, I mean, not that I knew those facts, but there were people that knew in the opposition of what they were speaking about. So
So you never did sign to give them permission to
I
survey?
never did. No,
Yeah.
no. And then they, of course, sent another letter and said, "Well, we're going to the DPU if you don't sign."
Oh, really?
Oh, yes. It was
Huh.
like a threatening letter. And
Oh, wow.
I said, "No." I said, "I'm sorry, I'm not signing this either." Right. And then got a follow-up question, telephone conversation, and I said, "Look, I sent that to you, registered mail." I said, "You've got it now. You know how I feel and where I stand." So I haven't heard from him since then.
And do you have neighbors and people around the community that are also being impacted by the pipeline that you know about?
Yes, yeah, a couple of houses down, there is a fellow whose land is going through and wants under the river.
Well,
It's just right through a river. It's just
Which river?
ridiculous. Mossbrook.
ah.
So,
Well,
and,
Wow.
the Connecticut.
oh, I know, that would be horrible, horrible.
Yeah.
I mean,
So they want to put it right under the Mossbrook River.
this is, no,
Wow.
there is a fellow down there, hopefully you get to interview him today. He knows more about that,
Right.
and he will tell you. He'll show it.
John, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
he'll show
Yeah,
you
Yeah,
exactly where.
that's right. So, so you have ally. I mean, I see signs up and down the road here too.
Oh, we all feel,
Yeah,
we are all against it.
Yeah.
We
I
are all against
haven't
it.
really met anybody that was for it, really.
Well, there was a fellow in at that Irving meeting that stood up,
Hmm.
and I think he was for it,
Yeah. So,
but I don't know him, so I
yeah.
can't speak for him.
so do you have like a lot of anxiety about this pipeline?
I do have a lot of anxiety.
Yeah,
Yes, because you
yeah.
don't wonder. This is our future. This is the land. This is Mother Earth. I just don't agree with fracking anyway. I mean,
Mhm.
all the chemicals being shot into the earth
Mm-hmm.
and all the pressure, and then having this high pressure gas come through.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard that these pipelines out here in the country are not going to be
As robust, yeah.
as the one in populated areas. Now that scares me. So what if there's a leak out there and you can't smell it? You can't smell this methane right away. There'll just be an explosion.
Mhm.
And I understand that the fire departments can't handle an explosion of that magnitude.
No.
They're not.
No.
They don't have the capability. So that scares me. And especially as you see where I live.
Right.
You know, I'm about 7.5 miles from, water,
Mm-hmm.
fire departments. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, take a while. And then a little bit farther for the land. So,
I was interested at that Irving meeting to hear how many people cared about the fracking issue. They really got the connection. Like Massachusetts doesn't allow fracking in our state,
right.
but they're allowing this fracked gas that's devastating Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
Devastating. People can't drink their water and all that pollution.
And fire out of the faucet.
Yeah. And they're allowing that fracked gas to come through the state, even though we don't allow, we recognize the health and environmental damage of fracking. So but I was interested how many people brought that up at that meeting, about the frack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of knowledgeable people here in Western Mass.
Mhm,
You
mhm.
know, there are a lot of people that are going to get behind this and
Right.
fight.
Right. And so what else have you been doing besides selling 100 lawn signs and buttons
And giving away a lot too.
petitions and yeah.
Oh my gosh! This is my summer vacation. I pretty much spent, but I've loved it. We had a wonderful time with the walk. That was
Right.
the other thing, and I was
Right.
the SAG wagon. I
Right.
carried the first aid kit, and you missed out because you left early. But I
Yeah.
had cheese and crackers and fruit,
yeah.
and I know I had made 2 homemade cookies batches, and
Right.
it was.
Nice.
We had a great smorgasbord up at South Mountain,
Right.
halfway.
Right.
So, and I enjoyed
Well,
that.
that was a hilly walk.
That was a hilly walk. Yes, it was.
But it was gorgeous. And how about those houses? And they would point across the road.
Oh,
That's
yes.
where the creek is, and that's where they're going to be
I
putting it.
know.
Yeah. People all up and down that road were devastated.
I know it.
Yeah.
I know. It's very sad.
Yeah.
But shall we prevail and stop it?
Oh, stop the pipeline.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, we shall. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have to. I know there are a lot of good people that are working on our behalf.
Well, 25 towns have passed referendums.
I just heard that.
25 towns saying no pipeline
Yes.
in this town. And I think
Yeah.
Northfield will do
I
it
think
too.
they will too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are people definitely in Northfield that are very knowledgeable like you and very opposed and very activist.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Exactly.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, to imagine what their equipment would be,
Mm.
the steam shovels, they would be dynamiting places.
What?
So the alternative is bringing democracy back to America through the towns and cities of Massachusetts.
Mm. Absolutely.
Could be a plan.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So let me just ask you if there's any last thing we haven't asked you about that you might want to say about how we're going to stop this pipeline, your involvement in it.
Oh, well, whatever I can do to help, as I've said all along, and that's why I just dove right in. There was just no stopping. This was, I feel really passionate about it and wanted to do whatever I could do. And I've really enjoyed it a lot. I found it rather magical to find people that have something to say and or something to contribute or want to help. I mean, when the climate writers came, right away they jumped in. Give us some petitions. We'll stand at the farmers market and we'll get signatures. So not only were they educating us about what they're about, but about the pipeline. And they found out here in Western Mass, they were so happy to see signs all over, and that people really knew what was coming and knew about it. But they
Yeah.
were there to help. They were
Yeah.
there to help us with our questions for Kinder Morgan coming up August 19th. And
Mm-hmm.
it's been great. It's been a great experience for me. I'm not really a political person, but I felt, as I said, felt passionate about this.
You know what I felt was really interesting and remarkable? This rolling march started at the border of Massachusetts and New York in Richmond. And every day it went to a different town, and people were there to receive it, and to take the baton, and to take the signs, and to go the next day. It was like clockwork. I mean, I watched
know.
it. It was like
My
unbelievable.
sag wagon met up with Irving and Warwick's sag wagon, and I was able to, okay, here you go. Here's the leftover food. Here's this. Here's the first aid kit. Here's this. And then they took it.
Yeah.
Loved it. Just loved it.
It was
Very positive.
Yeah.
Very
The
positive.
whole across the entire state.
And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And then
know it.
into Boston for
Yeah.
the rally. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Great.
It's very exciting.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know. And you made the rally too, didn't you?
I did.
I know.
Hi, I'm Walter Jaworski.
And Walter, where are we now? We're in front of your home?
Yes, 87 Old Wendell Road in Northfield. And the property, we have about 200 acres here. And recently, about a year and a half ago, we sold the development rights off, and it's under Forest Legacy program right now. And we, as a family, we talked about it's a big step to put all the land in conservation so that you can't develop it anymore. And we felt that we wanted to leave it open and be able to farm it and also to harvest timber on it. But we didn't want to have any development on it. And when Kinder Morgan came to talk to us in the spring, they said, we want to put a pipeline through your land. And I said, well, I don't think you can. And they said, oh, well, we just want to have a survey so that we can look at, see whether or not we can do it or not. So initially I said, well, if you want to waste your time, go ahead. So I signed okay for the survey. And then I found out later that survey doesn't just mean a surveyor. It means that they might go in and do core drilling and so forth with big machinery. And so once I found that out, I rescinded my permission to them and started to actively fight against it, because then I found out that just because it's under conservation and and you're not supposed to develop it doesn't mean that they can't. I mean, I can't, but they could go to FERC, which is the Federal Energy
Regulatory
Commission, and get permission to then use eminent domain to take any land they want to. And whether or not it is under conservation or not, or a park, or wildlife preserve or anything, they can go and do anything they want to, for what I understand. So,
Excuse me, how was your process of rescinding? How did that go? How difficult was that to
well, it was
do?
not difficult. It was just I was in contact with the people who are against the pipeline. There's a whole bunch of people in this area, and they gave me paperwork. I got a form to fill out that says we rescind it in legalese, and so we sent it as I think registered mail
To Kinder Morgan.
Kinder Morgan got a signed postcard
Receipt.
receipt saying that they received it.
Yeah.
So they never responded to that, but but we have the receipt that they received the rescindment of the survey. They did come. Survey crew did come about maybe 6 weeks ago. Excuse me, and survey the roads around. So they were here doing preliminary work. Maybe about 6 weeks ago.
And how much into your land would this pipeline be, and how would that affect?
Well, the pipeline will cross over Old Wendell Road, and then it will go through about a half a mile of my property. It's a long ways, and there's streams, wetlands, ledge, forest, and things that I didn't want to have disturbed are going to be disturbed. One of the things also I found out is that I can't drive over the pipeline with my tractor and my equipment. If I want to mow the fields, I can't do it. Or I can't actually go from one side to the other without going onto the road and entering. So it's going to restrict me from being able to do a lot with my land. Also for logging, I can't cross the pipeline taking logs out. So I would have to make a different, if the logger would have to have a much more circuitous route of getting logs out. Have to almost have two lots instead of taking out all as one. So it's going to impact, and possibly even will make it impossible for some of it to be logged. I'm not sure exactly where they're going to put it.
So you have taken these legal actions to date, and you've met with other people who are opposed to the pipeline. What's your next step?
Well, we're fighting as best we can. I went with some neighbors to see U.S. Senator Markey in Boston yesterday, and we met with his aide, and he's at this point has come out against the pipeline, and he's looking into how to intervene with FERC. And I think that's the step right there, is to help prevent the permission of Kinder Morgan getting permission to do this, or at least this seems to be a real rush job, in my opinion. There's almost no input from the public or from other interested parties, and cost-benefit analyses, all those kind of things have not been independently done. Kinder Morgan has done them, showing, of course, that it's necessary and vital that this be done, but independent, what do you call it? Study has not been performed by someone who's neutral. So we asked Senator Markey to at least slow it down and let's get some studies, let's get some information, let's get a lot more input from the public. At least do that, and I believe he's quite he wants to do that for us. So at least that's what he said. That's what his aide said that they were trying to.
So we have Senator Markey, we have Senator Warren, who has also come out opposed to it. My congressman, Jim McGovern, is opposed to it.
He's ours too here, and he's opposed to it. The congressman is. He's very opposed to it.
Yes.
And our state rep, Paul Mark, is. Stan Rosenberg is kind of wishy-washy. I think he's looking forward to his presidency of the Senate and wants to be kind of step back from controversies. But maybe, with enough pressure, I'm sure he's going to have to make a stand one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so at least we've got some legislators and our Congress people and senators against it. And the more we get, the better.
And we have a groundswell of citizens, and
Yes.
here we are in the land of Daniel Shays, so
That's right.
that should give us some
Well, this is a very
additional-
politically active area.
Yeah.
It's a small population, but a lot of activity, a lot of activism goes on in the valley, much more so than per capita anywhere else, I think, in most of the country. And so I think that's they didn't really realize what they're gonna face once they got here, because I think we're mounting quite a campaign against them.
How long have you been on this land?
I moved here full time in 1979. Before that, it was owned by my uncle, and he bought it in the early 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been in my family for about 50 years.
Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of equipment over here.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have going on here? I see a lot.
Well, the wood's for my personal use.
Yeah.
I heat with wood. And I have beef cows. I have a herd of about 20 beef cattle. And so a lot of my equipment is to get ready for hay, for feeding them in the wintertime. So I only have grass-fed cattle, which is much more healthy for them and for us who consume that meat. A little plug for grass-fed, and much less of an impact on the environment than the big feedlot beef that's most of the beef in the country is. Yeah. And anyway, so all of my equipment is to do that, to hay and get ready for that kind of for the winter, because of course they can't graze in the wintertime. There's no grass growing.
So we're going to go over and take a look at your solar panels, but
Sure.
What do you use that solar?
Well, it basically makes electricity for us for the farm, and we're allowed to actually give it or let another person have. My daughter lives in Northfield, and so she gets the benefit of it as well, because it's more than we use. So the amount of electricity that's produced is at least enough for two families.
So you're producing enough electricity for two families, and one of the things that Kinder Morgan is using as part of its PR is that it's going to provide electricity for us, and the simple panels you have provides enough for 2 family homes.
Well,
and
right,
a farm.
and at this point, I think that investing, I don't know how many billions of dollars they want us to pay for. I mean, that's the big kicker, is that the Kinder Morgan isn't going to pay out of their pocket to actually build this pipeline. We are, as ratepayers for electricity. 100% of it's going to be paid by us for their benefit, so they can take fracked gas, natural gas, which has its own issues, lots of issues about groundwater, about pollution. It's also it's a carbon. It's a what do you call it? It's a fossil fuel itself. So we're increasing their consumption of that. And what I've read, I don't know if it's true, if they patch the leaks of the pipes of the natural gas pipes in New England, that it would more than offset what they're going to be giving us. So I mean, isn't that kind of, don't we want to fix it first? And then if we put solar panels on rooftops and made it much more accessible for people, take $4 billion and subsidize that for the Commonwealth or other states, and also other alternative energy sources to do. How about supporting going into buttoning up and weatherizing everybody's home? I mean, that would probably cut the gas usage or electricity and fossil fuel usage, I don't know by what, a third maybe, just by doing that. So there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that can be harvested, so to speak, that it hasn't been addressed. So they just want to go out and build this brand new pipeline, which then is going to, if you're going to invest 4 or 6 or 8 billion, who knows what it's going to finally cost? Because they say, at first it said it was going to be 2, and now I've heard it's 4. And just like the big dig in Boston, what happened with that? I mean, all of a sudden it's like billions and billions more. So if you start investing that kind of money, then you're kind of tied in to continue to frack, to continue to get this gas from places and doing things that are environmentally deleterious to the groundwater of the localities where it's coming from, and for global warming in general for the world.
Yeah.
So
Thanks.
I feel that it's we haven't really looked at those kind of things at all, and it's, as I said, it's a rush job, in my opinion, and they are pushing through basically a pipeline for them to make billions of dollars. Probably a lot of that, some of it's going to be for the use of New England homes and people, but I'd say a majority probably is going to be liquefied gas to go export so they can make even more money. And so that's like, we're going to support them making billions of dollars, and we're going to pay for the luxury of them, for their ability to, and their stockholders and their company to make millions, billions and billions, not billions, billions of dollars more. And I think that's just obscene.
Thank you. So Walter, do you want to tell us about your paddles?
Sure.
How did you buy them? How did you?
4 years?
No.
4 years. And it's I believe a 9.2 kilowatt system, which is a fairly big one. A lot of people don't get them that big, but we went up to the maximum that you can do for residential property, and just for the investment and for so we could then give our power to our daughter too, so that we could share and have actually we make more than she needs as well, so we have built up some reserves of electricity that and that was another issue, that the electric companies wanted to take away that ability not that long ago, but that luckily was squashed.
Do you want to just tell us how you did this briefly?
Well, I mean, it was, we hired a company, PV Squared out of Greenfield, we got a couple of bids from other places. They were very similar. There wasn't a lot of difference in price when we were looking. And there's a lot of incentives in Massachusetts to get solar, so that I think we're one of the better states, if not the best state, that has subsidies for solar. And so I looked into it, and we invested quite a bit of money to have those solar panels put on. We get rebate, or not, what they sell green energy credits, and so we get every quarter we get some money from that, from companies that pollute by need to get offsets, and so they can pollute. So they buy my green energy credits somehow. I'm not really sure how that works that well. I just know that I get some money every 3 months from doing that. So basically the payoff for this system is about 7 or 8 years. So that it will have paid for itself after that time. So we're almost, it's been 4 years. It was July of 4 years ago that we put it in. So it's a full 4 years that we've had it. And so another maybe 3 or 4 years it will be completely paid for of the investment that we put into it. And then we probably will have at least 20 to 30 more years of electricity being produced from it. I just, there is arguments. I see people that there are some pro signs around. Every once in a while you say, I'm for the power line, or for the pipeline. And I think that it's mostly about jobs. I think I don't think that they necessarily want a pipeline, but they want the union jobs. And I think that there's ways, I believe, if we talk about patching up the old infrastructure, doing all these other things that we could possibly help to improve conservation, that they could have those and more jobs. So if you're looking at jobs, I think that it's a short-sighted view of things, that yes, for 2 or 3 years they'll get some good jobs, but then they'll disappear. And I think that there's ways of investing into alternatives, into conservation and other low-hanging fruit of trying to button up houses, etc., that could actually help the economy a lot more than that pipeline can.
My name is Penny Smith, and I'm Pam Smith, and we're in Orange at our cabin camp that was built by my father and uncle 60 to 70 years ago, and we've continued to maintain it. It has great sentimental value to us since it came down through my father's side of the family. And we have pictures of my father and grandfather in making maple syrup, and then my father had another maple syrup shack out back that he made. There is out back where the pipeline would probably run a hand-dug, gravity-fed water line, which my father dug, then dug it across the road. And in the field opposite, he raised strawberries. He swamped a road by hand all the way to Warwick. So we've continued to try to maintain. Obviously, we don't do maple syrup and strawberries, but we use it for hiking, snowshoeing, picking partridge berries to make berry bowls, and we use the camp periodically, fall and winter, not so much in the summer because of the bugs. And friends stay here, and a lot of people use the property for hunting. And there are numerous brooks and streams, natural brooks and streams on the property. Growing up, there was a natural pond that he maintained as a skating rink for us. We had supper up here every single Saturday night with my mother's side of the family. The two families would get together, and we had baked beans and hot dogs up here every single Saturday night. my father used this as sort of a retreat because he was the chief of police in town for a number of years. And since there was no phone up here, this is the one place he could come and sort of escape. And after he retired, he took up baking bread and on the wood stove.
Do you still have that wood stove?
Yes, we do. We still have the wood
Wow.
stove, the
Wow.
fieldstone fireplace.
Yeah, yeah.
We've, recently updated all the chimneys on the wood stove, the fireplace, so that they're all secure, up to date.
Now, you talked about the water, the natural flowing water, the streams. Is that where Kinder Morgan wants to put their pipeline?
We're not exactly sure, but I'm sure it would affect it because the gravity-fed water line comes from way up the hill, and he had a tile that he sunk in like a little pond area and put a foot valve pump on it. And it feeds all the way down the hill, across the brook and down so that it could come up in the camp. And there's more than one brook on the property, so.
And those brooks, of course, go into other streams
Right, right.
and eventually into the Quabbin, or
I don't know that, to tell you the truth.
Uh-huh. yeah.
And he also out here is like a little spigot where he hand dug, and I'm not exactly sure where that path is, but it was hand dug and it goes.
the spigot on the opposite side.
Goes underneath the town road that he used to irrigate the strawberry patch. So there's been a lot of work.
So what happened when you heard that Kinder Morgan? How did you hear that Kinder Morgan wanted to put a pipeline
They
through
came
your
and
property?
asked a survey,
Uh-huh.
and we said no.
Uh-huh.
How did you know that you had the right to say no? Because some people
We didn't know.
You just
that.
said no anyway.
We just
Right.
said no anyhow. The more I listened, the more I decided I was against it, and I wasn't giving any permission for anything until I knew more about it and had time to research it and check with other people. I said, I'm not signing for anything.
And so you haven't signed.
We have not signed. And they've contacted us 2 more times, but we've refused all times.
Right. And both of you are teachers in the high school there?
Yes. Yes. We're starting our 42nd year.
And what do you teach?
English
Both of you teach English at Mahar.
at Maher, yes.
Yeah. So has there been much, well, I guess it's been happening since this, more in the summer, but
Right,
but you probably know other teachers and other parents and stuff at Mahar that also are being affected.
Yes. I don't know as much a personal impact. Mike McGee
Yeah, yeah.
definitely is well aware of the situation. He's
Yeah.
made his classes aware of the situation so
Mm-hmm.
that some of the students are certainly aware of it and somewhat trying to be involved.
Have you written letters to the governor and stuff?
We've written letters to all 6 governors. We've written letters, like 21 letters to all the state representatives and senators. We wrote additional letters to the governor upon request by another property owner on this road, telling more the personal story of why this place means so much to us and why we're opposed to the pipeline.
Yeah, good, good.
So is this, would you think of yourselves before the pipeline as political activists?
No, definitely not. Though very committed to the community, committed to community and school service. We try to do what we can to serve on town committees. We try to beautify Orange by planting all the whiskey barrels and the hanging baskets.
Oh,
And
nice. Yeah.
so definitely committed to the community, but really I enjoy the rural, peaceful nature of the whole town, but certainly here. and definitely not political activist.
So it seems like that wasn't a part of your history, but you certainly got into it.
Right.
So you're willing to go the whole way, whatever you have to do to fight this project?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it means a lot to you.
And you know that there are people across the Commonwealth who are with you, both people who have property that would be affected, actually devastated, and then there are people like us who, it doesn't affect us personally, but it's part of the Commonwealth, and this is not something we want to see.
I've always been afraid of natural gas anyhow, even though I've had very little direct contact with it. But anytime you turn on the news, it seems as if there's a story of a gas explosion, and so it's something that scared me, and I didn't want any part of it. But we definitely have informed ourselves more since this started. I wasn't aware of all the chemicals that were released into the air. I wasn't aware of the chemicals that they use to drive the gas through the pipes, the frequency of the explosions, the leaks, etc., that we've now become aware of, which makes me even more opposed.
Very good. Well, we will do everything we can getting people throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to stop this pipeline. So we're with you.
Good, thank you.
My name is Scott Haverty. I live here with my wife, Susan Atkinson Haverty. We've lived here for 14 and a half years. We bought this land and we built a home from scratch, and we take great pride in it. And it's been this bucolic, beautiful setting that we have up here is now endangered, and the pipeline will actually devastate our lives. Kinder Morgan can only compensate you, and they do that minimally for the tangible issues, which is the easement that they take. But what they can't address in any form of compensation is how it affects your life. And I cannot live here peacefully with a surgical scar going through my land 130 feet outside my window. I'll see it every day. It'll be on my thoughts at night. Every waking moment, it will be on my mind. It just can't go through here. It just can't. It will devastate my life, my wife's life. It will make it intolerable to live here. And that's what it does to me personally. As far as the idea of the infrastructure of the Commonwealth being expanded, the more we expand things like pipelines, the less we move away from the agenda which is put forth by our governor for alternative energy sources. And that just pushes that timeline back and back and back, and we can't have that. So the idea is a pipeline, rethink the issue. If it's not part of a sustainable energy policy, then why do it? It doesn't make any sense. So the idea is, I'm against the pipeline. I'm against the technology of how we extract oil from the ground presently. But the idea is that things come sort of full circle, and we shouldn't allow it. We should make a stand on the infrastructure. Don't expand it. We have alternatives to it, very viable alternatives. It just takes a will to do it. And that's what I see as in shortcoming as far as the will. But pipeline, no, absolutely not, absolutely not.
Scott, I see we're in the middle of this very dense, beautiful forest.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my wife and I, we bought 62 acres of land, and I have land on both sides of the road here. What drew us to the area was the forest. I mean, it's just beautiful, beautiful. There's wildlife and fisheries land on this side of the road also. There's state land to my northeast, and there's also large tracts of land, including the sisters next door who own 102 acres up there. And we've all been very, very cognizant of the minimal imprint that we make on the land. My wife and I have we augment our heating source with wood. We've made a conscious effort to not take good species of trees. We make conscious effort to take species of trees that have been somewhat compromised by disease and natural forces. We haven't cleared the land. We don't have a formal lawn where we have to use certain products on the lawn. We've made a conscious effort not to do that, and now to have this pipeline come through, it's just like, it's how we conducted ourselves up here. Now is like, it's a smack in the face. It's so but again, you just listen here. This is what it's like all the time. This is beautiful. I've lived in the city. That's why I moved out. That's why we moved out. We lived in Peters Ann prior to this. We lived in Fitchburg and Leominster, too crowded. We moved to Peters Ann. Believe it or not, that got too crowded, even though there's only 1,000 people there. And we found this beautiful spot, and we're only 7 miles from the highway. It provides convenience to that route, but it gives us this 7 miles off the highway, and you think you're in the Upper Kingdom in Vermont. I mean, it's just beautiful, and it's hard for me to even contemplate losing it.
Have you spoken to your the governor or the representatives?
My wife and I have sent 2 letters to the governor's office.
Yeah.
All right. We get the typical response back that they're looking into all energy options and so forth, and that it's not a letter of it's a standard response letter, nothing specific to our issue.
Formula.
All right. Yeah. My letters are basically there are tangible ways it affects you, and there's the intangible. For instance, Kinder Morgan, their compensation for the landowner is by linear foot. It's not by square footage. So they'll take 1,800 feet linear from me, 1,800 feet. They'll take an easement. They'll pay taxes on their linear foot. I pay taxes on the easement where I have restricted usage.
Oh.
So the idea is that I can't. How's the town going to compensate me as far as they assess my property? What a complex formula. That's not going to work out. So the idea is the landowner, everybody in Massachusetts, or anybody who's going to, if the tariff is imposed, is going to pay a cost for it. Then you go to the directly affected people, the landowners. They will pay such a disproportionate cost, either tangibly or intangibly. The tangible issue is they're going to use my land. They're not going to pay full taxes for it. They're not going to compensate me adequately for it. The intangible, it's just going to devastate this setting that we fell in love with, and that we've tried to maintain. And that to me is the biggest thing, is that it's just going to cease the existence that I have. And my wife and I love it up here. The dogs love it up here. It's just, I mean, what you, like I said, what you hear right now is what you get all the time, just nothing. It's just the birds, just the animals, and it's, while I was waiting for you, there was a hawk no more than 30 feet from me, nesting and flying around, and it was just beautiful. Occasionally you get the eagle flying up from the quabbin, we've had all sorts of animals here. It's just beautiful to see, and we don't hunt, we don't partake of that. We've just thought that it was a responsible way to deal with the environment that we've been given, and we were fortunate to come upon. And it's just I know that there's very few landowners up here. There's a lot of usable land, as far as a lot of vacant land, uninhabitable. But I don't understand how a company can now view this land from above, and say, there's no homes here, but let's go buy this person's home here. It escapes me. It tells me that their initial survey was either strictly aerial or very cursory, or they just don't care. And I'm citing on the issue is that they just don't care. You know, they will exercise their right of condemnation, or commonly known as eminent domain. They will simply do it in the most cost-effective way they can, and that means going past my home as opposed to someplace else. And it's you know, I think there's a tension between agendas by other people. I think what you'll see is that you'll have people that want open space. Very admirable. We've tried to maintain open space up here. We live here, but we try to maintain open space. We try to be responsible to that concept. Environmentalists probably don't want the pipeline for many, many viable reasons. Open space people don't want the pipeline for their reasons. All right? So the idea is that if this is a public project, because all 6 governors have said, basically, yes, we need a pipeline, we need more natural gas service or transmission. Fine. That's a public mandate now. If it's a public mandate, why is it going through 1,600 people's private owners' land?
That's right.
It's a public project. It should go through public land, or not at all. Preferably not at all. But if it is a public mandate, public land should be, that option should be viable, and it should be explored more than just a cursory way that they're doing it right now. Obviously, the corporate mentality is the most cost-effective way to do it. If it's going to cost them more money, they will shy away from that and steer the argument someplace else. All right? But my central theme is, 1, no pipeline at all. If the pipeline does show up, it should go through public land. That's my position.
Good.
Thank you very much.
We're at Winchendon at Lucinda's backyard, where there's this beautiful pond, and she's got a canoe down there and an organic garden and hens across the street, and she lives in a beautiful colonial house, very beautiful old colonial house with her husband, and would be devastated by the pipeline coming through, right through her property.
I'm Lucinda Ellert. My husband is Dan Walker. We're here at the house at Gnarly Apple in Winchendon on Mill Glen Road. And we've lived here for about 2.5, a little more than that, years. We moved in the day after Thanksgiving, so November, whatever it was, in 2011. And we undertook the project of restoring this wonderful old house and enjoying the pond and enjoying getting to know the people in Winchendon and starting to work on our 6 acres across the street that we want to develop and make use of. We heard about the pipeline, I think probably end of February. Remember, it was really, really cold. And the agent came to our door and told us this was going to be happening. Actually my husband did a little bit of research initially and felt that from what he saw of the project, that it didn't seem to be too onerous. So we didn't really become concerned until a little bit later, not really until the first meeting that we had at beginning of May, I believe it was. But we were still not very keen on the idea. We had no idea of the scope of the project, or how much it could potentially affect us. When we did find out, we of course became very concerned, and threw ourselves wholeheartedly into protesting this to just join this movement, this tremendous movement that's grown all the way across Massachusetts, and so we're very much a part of this. So how it affects us now, emotionally, well, I'm very wrapped up in it. I would love to be doing other things with my time. I came out here to be in the beauty and to compose and to, develop my musical talents. I'm a conductor and a church musician. And to just enjoy this. The The pipeline, if it goes through, will go across. We have about 5 acres. We have 6.5 acres altogether. 5 acres is across the street from where we're sitting right now. And it would pretty well take out that entire 5 acres. When you consider the clear cut that they have to do to get their equipment in, and then to end up with a 50-foot wide easement, it would cut down all those huge trees over the way. There's historic ruins across the way that it could impact. There's a brook on our property that it would impact. We have heritage apple trees across the street. We have plans to put in possibly a small cash crop. We wouldn't be able to support ourselves with this, but we're thinking hops. Putting in a hops field, a couple of acres over there. We have a large organic garden that we share with our neighbor across the street. And all of that would be wiped out, everything. The pipeline would go across those 5 acres and pretty well wipe us out. It would take out the organic garden, it would take out the apple trees, it would take out that possibility of having a hops field that we would have for the local breweries, and organic, all organic. So the impact on us would be considerable from that respect. What we are very concerned about is the loss of property value, and the loss, possibly the loss of insurance, and then our mortgage would be voided. It's a frightening prospect, especially when you consider that pretty much everything, all of our assets are tied up in this at the moment. We haven't had a chance to recover from the move and from a construction project that kind of went awry, and that we have to raise funds to finish, and so on. But the property is well worth it. The house is more than 200 years old. It's historic. The features of the house are just beautiful. It's built before 1820. It was owned by the one of the first sawmill owners in Winchendon, John Poor. There's a little house next door which was built actually roughly the same time that he built for his mother-in-law. So it's a mother-in-law's house. We have a plan to restore that and turn it into a guest house. Because the Denison State Park is only 1.5 miles away. This is bikers' heaven out here. We know a million musicians that would just love to be able to get away, have a little place where they could practice, where no one's going to complain, and to be able to get on their bikes and get in nature and fish off the dam and so on. So we feel that that would be a very good way for us to be spending our retirement. The pipeline would destroy all of that. There'd be a scar across the street from us instead of beautiful woods and organic gardens and apple trees, of grass that is being loaded with chemicals. Nobody would come and stay here under those circumstances. So we would really wonder how we'd be able to recoup any of our funds that we have into this. I think that we would stand to be ending up in a trailer park someplace, living out our lives. I think that's probably our worst case scenario and our worst nightmare. So that's kind of basically the story.
Yeah. So how were you involved in stopping this pipeline?
Every way I can be, in every possible way. When we first really became aware of the scope of it and the potential for impact, for a negative impact on all of us along Mill Glen Road, I started investigating the what other towns were doing, and I found that a lot of them were passing non-binding resolutions, and I said, well, why can't we do that here? So I went to the town hall, I researched the whole thing, I researched what the wording was for such a warrant. I found out what the town hall's requirements were to start a petition drive to hold a town meeting. I wrote the warrant, got together with other members of our group. We reworked the wording so that it fit the needs of Winchendon. We got the petition out. We went out. We canvassed. We got all the signatures we needed, and last week we had our meeting, and there was a unanimous approval of the ban on the pipeline. The selectmen in town have been amazing. They're really right on top of it, and their interests are for the people of Winchendon. I'm really proud of this town. I feel like this has made me really a member of this community in a way that 22 years in Reading I never really quite became. So it's very, there are good things. There are some really, really good things that come out of an experience like this. We just have to see it through and make sure that that all of us succeed across the state.
So when you say see it through, what do you experience as the next steps? What are you anticipating as the next steps?
There are a lot of things that each of us can do and will continue to do. We sort of put this resolution to bed. So, and then of course there was the Boston Rally. That was a huge event in our lives. I got together, since I'm a professional musician and so is my husband, we know a lot of people. We got together, a few people, to form a little jazz band to play for the rally, to kind of warm up the crowd and make it peppy and fun. So we called this the Fracked Gas Explosion Jazz Band. It plays old-time jazz in the style of Louis Armstrong. And so we went down and played for the crowd, and very appreciative crowd, I must say. Had a good time, clapping their hands and singing along and all the rest of it. And out of that, we invented new words to an old song, and I'm not going to attempt to sing that on this camera, especially since I don't want to unveil it just quite yet. But we've got a project with a number of friends from actually across the state, musicians, people from various towns on the pipeline who are also musicians, and friends right here in Winchendon that are going to get together this coming weekend, and we're going to make a video of us and our protest. Not specific necessarily to Winchendon, not specific to Winchendon at all, and not even necessarily specific to the Kinder Morgan project, but about the real dead end that fracking is, and how useless it is for us to continue to try to explore fossil fuels, an industry it's not going to go anywhere ultimately, and to encourage people to protest fracking and to really advocate for renewable resources, solar, wind, hydropower, whatever. I mean, there's so many possibilities. So we give information. We will be giving information about this this entire project and how damaging it is on so many levels. It isn't just about people and their property, but it's about what it does to the earth, what it does to the air, the false hope that it brings about jobs and about the future for our children and our children's children. And we're just gonna film this, and then we're gonna sing this song. We're gonna put it on Facebook, and we're going to encourage people to record their own version of the song. We're gonna open it up. This song is now yours. Record it, put it out there on Facebook, on YouTube, share it. We want to try to see if we can't start a movement countrywide to let our legislators know that it's wrong for there to be this unholy alliance between huge corporations and the government, that this is a government for the people, and we live in a democracy, and we have to have a say about our community rights and about our rights as landowners.
Thanks. There's one thing that's been brought up recently, and I'm curious if you've talked about it or heard about it. that is, we're a commonwealth. We're one of the few commonwealths
Yes.
in the
Also
nation.
Virginia, I think.
Yeah,
Maybe
Virginia,
Kentucky or-
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, okay.
But one of the truisms about a commonwealth is that in the towns or in the cities within the commonwealth, if the Board of Health says something is a health hazard, it can be prohibited from being in this town or city. And so one of the things that we're talking about in a number of towns is going to the Board of Health and to have the Winchendon, for example, or Board of Health look at the facts and determine that the Kinder Morgan pipeline, in this case, would be detrimental to the health of the people of Winchendon, and it would be prohibited from being here.
I think that sounds wonderful. I didn't know this, and you can bet I'm going to be looking into it and asking, we'll bring it up in our group, and it sounds like a wonderful project to get started with. I'm on it. I'm in.
So there's just one other thing that among other things, an organic gardener, a provider perhaps of hops, but also a musician. And what I was struck by when you were talking about that is how many people who are involved in this have their work against the pipeline as an avocation, that this wasn't part of the plan.
No, that's for sure.
But what you're doing is you're bringing various talents, your musical talents, for example, to awaken people, to energize people, to inspire, and to encourage people to keep moving.
Yes, and I think music plays a huge role in that process. And if you look at any other community or civic or social or union type of protest or movement in the past, music has been central to that. And I'm sure there are other musicians, and more power to them. Let's get together, everybody. The more we can have to make this happen and to wake people up, then yeah, I'm proud to be a portion of this.